Okay, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you guys so much for coming. Today we're going to talk about people strategy, which is our term for succession planning. And my name is Jen Glower. I'm the Vice President of People Operations. We've got a few people on the phone, so I'm going to be kind of standing near the speaker so you guys on the phone can hear me. And we do have a few handouts today, and I'll be referring to them as we go along. But as promised, we have our two-sided laminated, tool or reference guide that you can take away from today and always refer back to on the steps that we're going to talk about today, because we are going to cover a lot of information and a lot of different tools. For those of you on the phone who are just calling in and don't have screen visibility, you are going to be missing a lot, so make sure that you connect with me or Shelly or Katie afterwards and get the deck and the tools. For those of you who are remote and in front of your screen, I think Shelly sent you ahead of time the handouts, so you should have them, and then the screen is what we're going through. So we'll go ahead and get started. So the first slide is something that I shared in the people review session. So for those of you who were there, you got a sneak peek of this, but I think it's worth repeating for those of you who were there, and for those of you who weren't, it's a really important slide because this kind of outlines the state of the union right now here at Vology. We've got a lot of good stuff going on, but we also are struggling in some areas as well. And so we just want to call those out and tell you what we're going to do about them. So the good part is that we do a lot of internal promotion. We do about 33% for legacy Vology positions. When we have a people leader role at Vology, in 33% of those cases, we have filled that role with a Vology employee, which is good. That's about industry standard. On the Vital side, it's about 75%, which is about triple industry standard, which is really, really good. We like to hire internal people because they ramp up faster into their roles. As you guys who have been here and gals who've been here for a while know, we've struggled with some external hires. External hires take a little bit longer to ramp up, and sometimes, with our unique culture, they never do click. So when we do hire internally, it's usually a smoother ramp-in process. And when we do it right, it really helps our engagement. So the problems are we haven't done it right in every case. Even though we've done these internal promotions, people don't see why certain people are being promoted, and they wonder, why wasn't I part of the process, or was I even considered, or how can I be considered? So we've really struggled to make that transparent, and we need to do better at that. When we do promote people, we don't have a lot of resources to give to our internal leaders. Until recently, we might have one training a year. If they want to find something on their own, do something external, we'll support it, we'll pay for it. But for the most part, we have not had any formal, structured ways to help our leaders succeed. And we've seen that in the drop in people reviews after we promote people. So it's a fact that when we've promoted anyone from supervisor to manager, manager to senior manager to director, director to VP, in every single one of those cases, in the next cycle of people review, the person took a significant drop down in their ranking. And that tells me, it tells me a lot of things, but one of the things it tells me is we're not helping our leaders enough with the tools and resources they need to be successful. So how are we going to do this better? Education, a transparent process, consistent process, and you guys as leaders in the room, and the reason you're here today is really to be part of succession planning. So we are going to have deliberate actions as a leader to have a succession plan for ourselves so that we can move up in the business, but also have plans for critical roles and other people in our teams. This is going to be, the bigger your team or the more critical of a role that you oversee in the organization, the more important it is to have this plan in place. So that's what we're going to go through today, and there's really 4 things or areas that we're going to analyze. I'm going to challenge you guys to analyze about your role and your team. First of all, it's critical roles, and we'll go through what those are and how to find them. Secondly is what is the current need and what are the upcoming needs of the business based on our organizational strategy and just, industry and marketplace and competitive analysis, what's going on and what do we need and what are our gaps. And all of that really revolves around us evaluating our bench, which is our existing pool of talent. It's very important to make the point that people strategy or succession planning is internally focused. So my plan for my successor can't be, oh, we're just going to hire somebody. My plan for my top GP producer isn't going to be, oh, I'm going to hire the competitor's top GP producer. My plan is not going to be finding it from the outside. My plan as a leader has to come from the inside. And it doesn't mean that the plan has to be an internally executed plan, but we have to have a plan that has internal resources in it that we are sharing with each other and sharing with those resources so that we can utilize that when we can. It helps the people that are employed by us be engaged and have something to look forward to. It helps us as leaders have people that are ready to move in a more streamlined situation when something happens, So we call this our people strategy, and this is just an overview slide. There's 5 steps to people strategy. We're going to break it all down today. If you are a department head, someone who oversees an entire team or an entire function, it is your duty as a leader to have a succession plan in place. If you oversee 1 or 2 people, you're a supervisory person who reports to a manager, who reports to a director, it's really their responsibility to own this, but you can be a key part of that by having your zone covered. Okay, so the first step in people strategy creation is determining what our critical roles are. And in doing this, a lot of times we make assumptions about what our most critical roles are, but I think it's important to actually go through a thought process. And when we think about these roles, some of the things we want to think about are which positions have really rare skills. In some of our technology roles, especially our higher level engineers, it's a rare skill to have like a CCIE or a special, hoity-toity Juniper certification, or, once people get high in those tech ranks, it does become a rare skill, and we find ourselves looking nationally, externally for the talent versus even locally because there's so few of them. If you are a person who leads an organization of people that have these rare or unique skills, it's going to be important to pinpoint what they are, what those rare or unique skills are, and then have, some cross-training going on or a way to, have other people getting Juniper or CCIE or whatever it is that's going on. Unique talent. So what positions do we have where we have unique talent? The best example of a unique talent is in the entertainment world, which we are not in, but it would be an actor, right? There's nobody who can be Julia Roberts. Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman is the only person who could do that, right? Matthew McConaughey is a unique talent. When we look at that in our organization, though, I think about, on my team, I think about Jess. And, Jess is very unique because she's a personality just overflow. And this is the person who all of our new hires come and spend a half day with on their first day. And it's a really unique and memorable experience for them because she's fun and she's bubbly and she's funny, and it's like, wow, it's entertaining. And although Jess's job title, if you don't believe me, come by, and I know Dan knows what I'm talking about, that's why he's laughing. Yeah, she's awesome. And it would be easy on paper. The people operations coordinator is an easy job for me to fill, right? It is, a lot of different people could do that job, but not many people are going to be able to replace that personality piece that is so welcoming for new hires. So when you think about rare or unique skills, it's not just technology or certs. It could be their personality. In a certain leader who's really inspirational or motivational, it could be that. So think about that when you're assessing your roles and your people. Also to think about is what is the hardest position to replace? Some skills may not be unique at all, like recruiting, for instance. If I'm using my own example, recruiting is not a unique skill. There are millions of recruiters in the world. Finding a really, really good one is very, very difficult. So my hardest position to replace on my team of 7 people is recruiting. It's really, there's a lot of them. They're a dime a dozen, kind of like lawyers, but it's really hard to find a good one who's aggressive and they source passive candidates and they know how to cold call and they know how to pitch a job and they know how to hook a candidate and they know how to close a candidate and negotiate and all this stuff. It's real easy to post a job on CareerBuilder and wait for resumes to come in, but to get someone who's positioning the Zoology as an employment brand is something totally different. So for me and my team, the hardest position to replace is recruiting. What is your team's hardest position to replace? And which position would cause the most disruption if it were vacant, even for a day or two? So, if you've got a team of 5 or 10 or more people, is there one role on that team where you would be crushed if that person left with no notice and they were gone for even a week? Would you be absolutely, you'd have to come completely off what you're doing, go and do what that person does, or maybe you don't even know what that person does. I have another example here, my payroll person. When Wendy left the company, for those of you who remember Wendy, we didn't have anyone else who knew how to do payroll, and I didn't know how to do payroll. So I was in a big lurch. I had to get a contractor, and it kind of all worked out in the end, but we had some chaos for a while there. So as a leader of a team, think about what position or positions would cause the most chaos or the most disruption for you and the rest of your team and the organization as a whole. And these are the things that are going to help you determine what those critical roles are and what the most critical roles on your team are. And once you've kind of thought through that, just list them out. This, again, is going to be more important for someone who has 10 people more, than 1 or 2. But in the case of GP, if we've got $1 million GP producer, if that person were to win the lottery tomorrow and leave, how would we cover that? Would we be okay? If the answer is yes, then maybe it's not on the top of the critical ranking. But if the answer is no, because that person is the only person who has the relationship, or no one else really knows what he or she was even selling or talking about, that's going to be an area that's going to go on your most critical list. And when you think about these things, and this, by the way, is on, well, it's not on your laminated sheet in different pieces, but when you think about your most critical roles, the key is to rank them in priority order and kind of describe what each role is. And then once you have ranked them in the way that you think they rank, this is the tool that is on your laminated sheet, and this is what I would challenge you to do, which is really dig deep in determining the true criticality of those roles. And the way that you're going to do this is ask yourself these questions. And there may be more questions than this. This is what I thought of, but you may have some other things that you want to look at. Is that a problem? No? Okay. So first of all is impact on bottom line business results. This could be GP or revenue. It could be, if I'm in the services world, if I have a person who's on the Empath account and that person is the person Empath loves, and if that person were to leave, Empath would be upset, or TPC, or Office Depot, or Macy's, or Coke, any key relationship that has like a single point of failure, any big account on the sales side that has a great relationship that doesn't exist beyond one person, that's going to get like a 5 on the criticality ranking. If it's not an impact on bottom line business results, like let's say the receptionist position, or something else where there's a team of 10 and if one left, it's probably not going to impact the bottom line amazingly, that would get like a 1 or a 2 ranking. So you're going to rank each one of these things. The second one is manages other critical positions. So if I am a leader who manages another manager of people, that is probably going to be more critical than an individual contributor, because now I'm talking about, a few people rather than one. So if I'm Amy and Amy's got a supervisor who has 7 people under that supervisor, and the supervisor leaves or is promoted into another position in the organization, Amy now has 7 new direct reports that go directly on her, and she needs, that's going to be a lot. So that's probably going to get a 5 ranking. Relationships to key external customers. Does this person, who has Hotwire, is this the only person Hotwire will talk to? Or do we have many people who can cover that account if that person left? Same with Empath. I think about Mike Crawford, who has a great relationship with Empath. If that were to move around, who's going to take care of Empath, and do we have a plan for that? Cross-functional collaboration. This is when somebody on your team is maybe working on projects that involve other people in other departments of the business. I think about Steve Johnson when I think about this role. Steve Johnson is I think his title is Director of Strategic Finance, but he's project managing a lot of different things. He's got a billing project. He's got the facility move project. He has the re-onboarding of managed services customers project. If Steve Johnson were to leave, win the lottery, do whatever, where are all those projects? Who's got what? Where are the tasks? Who's owning what? It would be a single point of failure. He doesn't have a team. This is a critical position that we would rank a 4 or 5. In your teams, what project teams are your people on that if that person left would leave the team in the lurch or would leave us without things? I think about how many executives we've been through on the services side of our business, and Juanita and Rana have been through this, Shelley, Dan a little bit has been here. We've probably been through 5 executives over there in the last 4 years. And every time we have a turnover, and managers under them, and they all start initiatives, but every time we have a turnover, those initiatives, no one knows where they were, where they went, and we have to start all over again. And so here we are 4 years down the road, but we're not really much further down the road in the process and the creation of the foundation, because every time someone left, it wasn't passed on, it wasn't memorialized, there was no succession plan. So that's going to be a key. If the position requires rare or hard-to-replace skills, that's going to be a high ranking. And if other people rely on this role across the organization, that's going to be a high ranking. So let's say if we had one person doing accounts payable and all the T&E expense reports, right, and that person left, and we've got 40 of them coming in a day, that's going to create a huge workload on somebody's lap if nobody else knows how to do that. I think about the executive assistant for Barry and Steve. Katja is her name. She is an administrative assistant or an executive assistant, but she's probably juggling things that none of us even know about, speaking presentations for Barry to speak here, there, be there, executive sponsor stuff here, there, their calendars, different vendors, M&A activity that might be going on that only Barry and Steve know about at this point, and Katja. So there's an extent of reliance on this person by the organization as a whole. And this is kind of what you want to look at, and there may be other things in your own individual areas that aren't on this list, but you can add to it. And when you look at the different roles in your team, this will help you objectively get that priority 1, 2, 3 rank order so you can really focus on where you need to plan your succession. Does that make sense? Any questions on step 1? Comments? Okay. So step 2 is looking at your current and emerging needs. Current needs are what the business needs right now. It has to do with our strategy. It has to do with what our BHAG is. It has to do with what's going on, right? And we know that we have this $500 million goal by 2020, half of which is going to come from services, half of which is going to come from product. We also know that, when we break it down, we've got specific inside and field numbers and Cisco numbers. And on the services side, we've got, what we're doing with field services versus managed services. So we know what we have to do, and based on that, do we have the skill set? So that's current needs. Emerging needs are what's coming down the pike, right? So as we grow as an organization, we know that certified pre-owned, which is what we built our whole business on, is probably not going to continue to be a big part of our business. Right now, today, it is a big cash cow still, and it is very important for us to protect that. But tomorrow and the next day and every day ongoing for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, is going to become less and less and less important. So if I'm a leader and I'm throwing all of my resources and energy into training and documentation and talent and everything on this thing that I know may be going out of style, so to speak, I'm not doing it right. I'm not focused in the right areas. I need to be looking at what's coming down in the next 12 months. We've got Office 365, huge demand in the marketplace. We're not set up to deliver it. We are in the sweet spot of this, small mid-market where we know there's big demand, but there's not providers for that. So here we are, and there's a need, and we want to do it, but we're not set up to do it right now. So if I'm a services leader, I'm going to be asking myself, what am I doing to get ready for that coming need? If you're in a staff function like accounting or VPOPs, in VPOPs, our need is leadership training, right? Our leaders, we're kind of promoting people from individual contributors to leadership roles, and they've never been leaders before, and they don't have any resources, so we need to put that together for them. So we want to look at, not only what are our emerging needs, but also what's becoming obsolete. In the technology world, this may, I remember when I worked at Sage Software, a software company, we did software development. And one thing that was going out of style at the time was like Linux and Unix and all this stuff. And our some of our software was based on this old school operating system, and we needed to change it, but we couldn't because we didn't find the talent, blah, blah, blah. And it was just this, constant thing. What happened is it became harder and harder in the marketplace to find people who would support that old school technology, and it became more and more expensive because there was like 2 people who knew it. We knew we had a business problem where we had to change the platform, but we didn't, it was going to take time and money and blah, 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 blah. So we need to be more, if we can be more proactive about planning it out over the next 12 to 24 months, we won't become in a situation where we're in chaos. So consider not only emerging needs, but what's going out of style, what is becoming obsolete, and what is our plan to ramp off of that. If we can plan appropriately, we could do a better job of reduction in force situations, right? Because what happens is we hire. Our typical thing is let's throw a body at it, let's throw a body at this idea, that idea, this project. And then 6 months later, we're not doing it anymore, and then those people are out of a job. Whereas if we can kind of look at it holistically and say, okay, what talent do we have and where can they go based on our emerging needs, we could do a great job of utilizing who we have, maybe moving the chess pieces around a little bit better, but avoiding reductions in force. So as a leader of a team, a department, a function, these are the things you want to look at. And look over the next 12 months. So again, this is a tool, and what's in this deck and on your sheets are tools for you today. Everyone has different ways of doing their work. Some people love Excel spreadsheets, some people just like to think, some people like to jot notes down. So I'm giving you guys a variety of tastes with this stuff, and whatever works for you is what I want you to use. The end result should all be the same, which is an action plan of what is your risk mitigation plan. How you get there, I don't really care. I want to help you. But the end result should be the same. So this is just a way to list your current and emerging needs. Just think about the 1, 2, 3. What are they? And rank them in order. And describe what talent would be needed for that need. So in VPOP, we have a need for training and development. We don't have a trainer. Our entire business doesn't have a trainer. And I'm hearing Kevin's team needs sales training, and we need field sales, seasoned training for seasoned reps. We need O365 training for people to be able to support that product. We need new hire, longer, better, richer. We need leadership development training. We need all this stuff. It's all we hear. We have no trainer in the organization. So in VPOPs, that's what I need to look at. Okay, what do we have? How are we going to move and shift resources? So Shelly's stepping up to the plate. I'm coming out to train. Jess is going to get involved in Management 101 training. So we're going to do what we can. But what I want to do as the leader of my department is say, okay, training and development is one of my needs. The next need is, leadership alignment, so that not everyone's working on the same things, but they don't know about it, blah, 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 blah. How are we going to do that? Business partner model. And then, engagement, attrition. These are my needs. How can I stop the hemorrhaging of what is happening in our business, 30% attrition? Okay, well, training, education, succession planning, right? So those are my needs, but what are yours? Any comments about that? Any questions so far? Okay. Step 3 is looking at your talent bench and assessing it. When I say bench, it means your people. It's like a bench of talent, your people who are on your team. But I also want you guys to consider the greater organization. We all interact with a lot of different people in this organization, and for those of us who've been here a while, we know a lot of different people that may not be on our team, but we know what their skills and capabilities and desires are. For instance, I know Alex Jones, our receptionist, is awesome. I also know that she has aspirations beyond being a receptionist, and some of them may be VPOP, some of them may be executive assistants one day, some of them may be more cultural and event planning, but I know that about Alex. And even though she's not on my team and she doesn't report to me, she may go into my evaluation of talent as I think about my future needs of my business. Another one is Katja. Katja is the executive assistant. I'm not trying to poach another executive assistant, but I do know that she's got, she has some people aspirations, and, it's not going to be probably anytime soon, but it's good for me to have this in the back of my head as I plan out my organization. Jess is somebody who recently started in the organization. I know that she has a lot of desires to get more specific in her HR engagement, not just be the social coordinator, but she's very skilled and educated in HR, and getting her more involved in that kind of stuff. So this is what I'm talking about. It's not only just your team, but understanding some of the other players around you who may be able to fold into your team as time progresses, or understanding other leaders' needs. And if somebody on your team could fold into their team, just really weaving the whole system together. So again, we can focus internally on our own talent and not have to just get an external body every single time we think we have a need. It's expensive to do that, and it doesn't always work out. So when you're
sometimes it's unavoidable.
Yes, Dan. Yes.
Your training position is a perfect example, right? So you can only take on so much and then ignore your other responsibility, and Shelley can only take on so much of the training, ignore her responsibility, where clearly we've identified as an organization to get to $500 million, yeah, we have to have a training person.
You're absolutely right. So for those of you on the phone, Dan said, isn't it unavoidable to go externally sometimes? The answer is absolutely yes. When we get to 500 million, we are not still going to have 420 employees. We're not going to do all of that with the existing talent. There's going to be additions, no question about it. We just need to work into our process the step of let's evaluate who we have, and is there anyone internally who wants to do more, wants to do different, is capable of more, and can do this to get it off the ground quicker than potentially external? And the answer may be no. In that case, we go external. But sometimes we may be able to shift some chess pieces around, especially, Cecilia was asking a question in the morning session. Cecilia is our Cisco practice manager for Vital, and she sees a need for a BDR for her practice, and she doesn't have it, and she doesn't have the budget to add a position. But there are 12 people in that total team. And so what I would challenge Cecilia with, and what I did, is look at the organization as a whole, and it does go outside of her bounds, but everything on the Vital sales and revenue driving side, look at all 12, and let's see, is there a way to move around some things to get what she needs fulfilled in this BDR role and have the rest of the business fulfilled? It may be yes, it may be no, but it's something that we need to go through that exercise. When you're evaluating your people, you want to look at not only skills and knowledge and who they are on paper, but you also want to look at their desire and enthusiasm. So, in my HR career of 20 plus years, one of my kind of preachings, or what I get on my soapbox about, is hire, character, train, skill. And that means I believe that most people can be trained or educated on how to do a thing, but nobody can be trained or educated on how to be. People are who they are usually, and that's what we're getting. So I would much rather, and I would encourage my leaders and always have, to hire for the drive, the ambition, the attitude, the DNA, the values, and then train the skill. And that's also been, even though it's my biggest soapbox item, it's also been my biggest obstacle that I face with leaders in getting them to actually do that. Most leaders, you know, they've got an operation to run, and they don't have time to, you know, pour in all and do all this stuff. I got 20 people and blah, 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 so I just want to hire somebody who's done it, get them up, get them ramped up, plug and play, plug and play, plug and play. And so most times that's what we end up doing because that's what the leader wants to do. But in the rare cases that I've been able to, you know, talk a leader into taking a chance on somebody because we see something in them, those are some of the most beautiful results. You know, somebody really can just come up and shine. Eddie Austin, I don't know if any of you guys remember him. He was an example of that. He's since moved on because his career grew and his opportunity at Jabil was big and he left, but that was one. Carrie Farrington and Giovanni, what's his last name? Garcia is another one. So those two, they work in our services business. I hired them like 3 years ago. At the time, it was Frank Mann was our top executive over there, and Joel Snow. I don't know if you guys remember them, but they were adamant about not hiring these two people because they didn't have the skill and the certs and all this stuff. But I had met them at a job fair, and they were so awesome, and they were bubbly, and they were just great, and they wanted so badly to join Vology and be a technician and all this stuff. And so Joel and Frank said no. And 6 months passed, and time passed. They got into a lurch where they were like, all right, let's just try it. And here Carrie is today, and she's Carrie Farrington. You guys know her. You all know her. You've seen her, okay? And Gio works mostly in the field, but he's awesome too, and they've both moved up, and they've both stepped up and been great performers and engaged, and they're here. So think about not only who has the skill, but who has ability, and I would just challenge you guys to really give a chance to people who have that passion. You also want to look at the performance level of your team members. That is going to be a consideration, right? If somebody is not performing in their role, it is going to be it could be troublesome to give them a chance at something bigger, more different. A lot of times in my experience, if someone is struggling in one place, to move that person into another place, a lot of times doesn't solve the issue. Sometimes it does. It's probably a rarer case that it does solve the issue. They may just be in the wrong role, have a bad manager, they don't get along, whatever. But in a lot of cases, it's a root problem that needs to be solved before we just push them around or pass them around.
What does performance level mean? Like, use me for example. What does performance level mean? Like, what would you look at?
So Dan's asking what's performance level. I think it's different for every position. In a sales role, numbers are definitely key, right? It's going to be, you know, numbers to goal and GP and revenue and how each of your people on the team are performing to their goals and GP and revenue. And, you know, what are we tracking? Are we looking at call activity? Are we looking at retention of accounts? I mean, what are some of the metrics? And it's very metrics driven for sales. For something like services and customer service, it's a little bit harder. You know, it might be customer feedback from people that interact with those technicians on a, frequent basis to say, how was your experience with this person? And really soliciting the feedback. Because a lot of times people won't complain if it's not good, they just go silent. So it might be hard to root out a bad customer service rep, so to speak, rather than a salesperson who their numbers are showing every single day.
I think it's important so part of succession planning is I think it's important to define what performance level means. So I would never use performance to goal, especially in our organization, because our goals, they're tough the way they're put together. I would look at performance versus last year's actuals. Mm-hmm. You know, say, there's your growth, or performance of attrition level. You know, when you look at stuff like that, how your reps are doing it that way. Goals very hard because we don't have that precise way to do them, but I think in succession planning, having a clear understanding of what is a performance level, I think that's important.
It's very important.
Because everything else is just subject to whatever that person thinks on that day.
Exactly. And it's important for people to know what their performance measure is, you know. I mean, I need to know what my manager is even evaluating me on. And this is not people review stuff, right? People review is character. This is my bonus, this is my continued employment, this is my opportunities to do more things or promote. I mean, this is how am I doing? You know, how am I doing? And unless I know from Steve what I need to produce, then I'm going to be flapping in the wind without much guidance. So us as people leaders need to provide that guidance and clarity to our individuals on our team, and we need to also gain that from our managers as well. And that's what it should be rated against, is what has the company said that this is important, and what has my manager said that this is important. When you're looking at your team, you also want to think about, is anyone on your team disengaged? Is it possible that somebody's bored, demotivated, something's going on? They're either calling out a lot, they're showing up late every day, they're leaving early, they just don't seem as engaged as they used to be. If there's something like that on your team, you definitely want to get to the root of that, because that usually doesn't correct itself. So you want to really kind of see, okay, what is happening here? These are questions you can ask yourself to evaluate your bench. There's a lot of other things you can do. Consider the people reviews, especially for those of you who manage people leaders. For those of you who manage people leaders, those people reviews came with lots of feedback in them. That feedback is going to be one set of information that you can use to evaluate your bench. In my team, and I have a team of 6 people who ultimately report to me, I had all of them rate each other in the people reviews, so even though not all of them have direct reports, I wanted to get the collective feedback. It was really helpful for me because there were things that came through in the people review that I didn't notice even as their manager myself, but their peers who had worked with them day in and day out in different capacities had brought to my attention through the people review things that I didn't notice. And this is good feedback that I was able to use. And I did make some changes based on that feedback. I made organizational structure changes in my organization, and I made changes in the way I interacted and engaged. So this is going to be an important thing. The 4-box grid, I'll show you that in a second. Your one-on-one sessions with your people, this is something you should be doing every week, every other week. And this is a time that you're not just going over, hey, what's on your plate? How can I help you? How's things going? It's a time to say, you know, are you still in this? Are you happy here? Is there something different you want to be doing that you're not doing today? You know, really have a deeper career discussion to understand what it is that they want and desire so that you can, as their manager, get them there if it makes sense for the organization. And informal conversations. This is going to come up. If you guys are leaders of people, you are naturally going to get feedback. Juanita gave me great feedback on Shelley the other day in the hallway and just said, you know, I really love this business partner model. My meetings with Shelley are so great. They're so valuable. Thank you. And it's great. So, and that's, thank you, Juanita, for that feedback. And you guys are going to hear feedback on your people. It happens all the time. It may be good sometimes. It may be constructive, like, you know what, I don't know where so-and-so's been, but I've called her 8 times. I've emailed her. No one's getting back to me. Is there somebody else I need to get with? This is feedback through informal conversations that are going to be data points for you as you assess and evaluate your talent bench. So the 4-box grid, this is another tool, tool alert, and it's on the back of your laminated form so you can never forget it. This is something that's real simple and it's easy to use and it's not super scientific, but it is a pretty quick 5-minute exercise to get yourself gut checking objectively on where your people fall. This is especially helpful if you have a larger team. If you have a smaller team, but let's say in that example where you know other people in the organization who may want to get into accounting or get into customer service and SOS or get into VPOP, you can throw them in your grid. Nobody needs to see this grid but you, but this is going to help you kind of get your arms around and your head around where are my people falling and what am I going to do. So the x-axis is performance, and to Dan's point, you really need to know what it is that you're measuring on performance. The potential is the y-axis, and by potential we mean, is this person able to do something outside of their current box, right? We all kind of fall in a box on the org chart. Is this person able to operate in a different box? It could be lateral, it could be in a different function in a different department, it could be as a leader. It doesn't always have to be as a leader to have potential, but anywhere that this person can be other than where they are is potential. So bottom left grid, low performance, low potential. These are usually the people that you're working on very closely because they're not doing a good job. These are typically the people who they should know that they're sitting here. They're probably on a performance plan. You have been talking to them and coaching them and telling them what you need and telling where they're missing, and it's just, it may not be working. In this grid, we need to manage their performance quickly. If you have someone in this grid that doesn't know they're there or doesn't know they're not performing, you need to, like today, have a conversation with them. And that is your job as a manager. If someone is there, have a conversation, start working with them. If you don't know how to do that, talk to Shelly, your business partner, talk to Katie, your business partner, talk to me. We're going to help you with that. This should not require a lot of your time. You want to focus most of your time in that top right grid. What generally happens is 80% of our time is focused in this bottom left grid. It just is the way it happens. But we want to get our time out of that grid. So just be quick, give the feedback, give the coaching, and move on. If someone is a high performer but they don't have a lot of potential to do outside of their current role, this is not a bad thing. This is a really, really good thing. This is a person who is a workhorse. This is a person who loves what they're doing, and they usually want to be the very best at that job of anyone else, and they want to become a subject matter expert in what they're doing. So if they're an accounts payable rep, they want to be the best accounts payable rep, and they don't want to be a leader, and they don't want to do receivables. They just want to do that, but they want to be the best. If it's a technician who does networking, you know, they only want to do networking, but they want to become that CCIE or whatever the level is at the top, right? They may start as a NOC-Tech 1, but, you know, move on up down the road, getting more and more certifications and becoming more and more versed in their area of expertise. These are the people where the investment should be to upgrade their skills and ongoing education in their area, and then also to be in your mind as you think strategically and in a succession kind of frame of mind, are we going to be able to sustain a job for them here based on what our emerging needs are? So in the case of, let's say, a CPO expert, 3 years from now, we may or may not be doing CPO, right? If we have a CPO expert who's an awesome employee and they're so great and they love CPO, and we know that over time this is kind of going away, what are we doing? We need to have a conversation with that person to see, okay, is it just a networking thing? Because if it is, let's start teaching you some other things other than Cisco, or, you know, maybe newer Cisco, because we will sell new Cisco, and, you know, things like that. If this is, you know, the case of my Sage example where it's Unix or Linux or whatever the thing was that was going out of style, what new platforms can they start learning? You know, it's going to be a little bit outside of their comfort zone at first, but we don't want to lose them and, you know, eventually have to manage them out if that's the only thing they can do and it happens to be a thing that we're no longer going to do over time. So that's what you want to think about when you've got people in this grid. On the low performance, high potential, this is the trickiest box of all because you've got somebody who's got potential, but they're not performing. And that's really weird. And not a lot of people fall here, but some people do. And these are the hardest people to manage usually because they're really smart and they're sharp and they know what they need to do. And when they do come up with an idea, it's like, whoa, where did that light bulb just come from? If you could only be like that every day, like, whoa. So here we need to really assess their motivation. You know, are they happy with their manager? Is something going on at home? You know, are they getting 10 recruiting calls a day and there's a carrot over there that they're really considering, so they're kind of checked out here? You know, are they in the right role? It may be that they've got a lot of good stuff, but maybe they're in just not a good role for them right now, so maybe we need to move them out of the role into a different role. But here we need very targeted action. And then in the high grid, this is where we invest. This is where we put all of our time. People with both potential and high performance, you want to encourage them, you want to coach them, you want to reward them, you want to give them everything that they can get because these are going to be your people that are most likely your successor or other people's successors. And what are you doing to prepare them for the next step? Any questions about those grids? So next is finding the gaps. Okay, I've outlined my critical positions, I've ranked them, I know what's important, I've evaluated my team, I kind of know where my team stands and who's doing what. Now, where do I have gaps? What you want to think about with the gaps is, who do you not have a successor for? Is it your position you don't have the successor for? If not, that needs to be your plan. If it's Carrie Farrington that we don't have a successor for because she's the only person who does internal IT support, we need a good plan for that. Not saying that Carrie's going anywhere, but Carrie wants to move up. You know, we need somebody to come in behind her. So who do you not have a successor for? That needs to have a plan. Which emerging business need do you not have a plan for? You need one. And what current team member do you not have a plan for? If somebody is on the bubble, if somebody is disengaged, I would recommend that you get a plan together in the case that that person does leave, because we don't want to be in chaos mode. We make really bad decisions when we get in chaos mode. When something happens that we did not plan for, we do dumb things. We hire expensive people too quickly. We move someone over here and it was the wrong move. So we want to have a plan ahead of time so we don't make dumb decisions. When you look at your gaps, you need to be able to answer yes to these questions. On the left side of this slide refers to your critical roles. So once you've defined what the critical roles are on your team, you need to ask yourself, is the current talent in this role strong and stable? So if a critical role on my team is recruiter, do I have a strong, stable recruiter in place? If I don't, I need a plan. Do I have a successor in queue? These are two questions. Do I have strong, stable talent? Yes, no. Do I have a successor? Even if my answer to yes on the strong, stable, yeah, Mike and Lisa, they're awesome. They're engaged, they kick ass, everything's great. But if I don't have any successors in mind in this business, I'm not in a good place. Because when we grow to 500 million, I'm going to need more than 2 recruiters. And I don't necessarily want to hire externally. I want somebody who knows Vology so they can pitch Vology. On the other side of the slide, on the right side, it's a need, the emerging needs that are coming down, either a current need operationally now. Office 365, we need to re-onboard all the new managed services customers. We need to train and develop our leaders. These are existing needs. Is it covered, yes or no? And if it's not, do I have a 12-month plan? If not, I need one. So these are gut check questions for you guys. And step 5 is just creating the plan. It's time to now create your plan. And when you look at creating a plan, you want to have an action plan for each critical position on your team. You want to have an action plan for each one of those business needs you've outlined. And you want to have a development plan for each member of your team. There's 3 parts to your action plan. The 2 handouts, one says template 1 and one says template 2. These are going to be your action. This is an action plan template. You can use it if you like it. You don't have to, but it really step by step takes you through putting together your plan. Slide, whatever slide this is another tool. This, and again, I'm overloading you guys with tools because everyone learns and does things in different ways, and I want you guys to have resources and not be in front of a blank sheet of paper when you put this stuff together. I like this one because on the left, it lists my critical role. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I've got potential successor option A or option B. I have a couple names in mind. I'll throw them up there. Nobody needs to see them right now. I'm just going to throw them up there and see what happens. And then if I don't, or even if I do, let's say in my critical role, let's say the recruiter role, critical role 1. If Lisa were to leave or if Mike were to leave, would I change the role in any way? And if so, how would I change that and what would it look like? And if I would, can I change it now and should I change it now? You know, in the talent itself, if Lisa were to leave, if Mike were to leave, would I hire someone that's a clone of them? They're so perfect for this role, I need an exact replica. Or would I change 1 or 2 things? And if I would, what does that look like? It's important for you as a leader to know this because you need to be ready for it. And as you work this out and you write notes about this, you will be amazed about how these ideas are going to formulate themselves into plans, and they're going to formulate themselves into better plans than you have today, and you're going to end up with a kick-ass organization under you. On the right side of this slide, team member plan. So I've got a successor in mind, option A. I'm going to think about that person, and I'm going to ask myself, what can they start doing today? What can I have this employee start doing today to ready them in the case that I were to move up or out of the organization? What do they still need to learn? If I did leave tomorrow, is this person ready right away? If not, what's the gap? That's the gap I need to fill. You know, is it they need employment law, they need to know that, or no, maybe they just need to know who our employment attorney is. You know, I got to figure out exactly what the gap is and fill it. And then what can I do? Can I give them on-the-job training? Can I expose them to different things? Can I get them in external development programs or a focus group or an association or whatever it is? And when am I going to schedule this? I need to hold myself accountable, not just think about it and jot down notes about it, but actually take action on this plan. And the best way I can hold myself accountable to this is share my plan with that person. Because once I share my plan with that person, it doesn't mean I'm guaranteeing them my job. It means that this is what I'm thinking about, and now they're excited, and they're going to hold me accountable and manage up to me and say, Jen, I want this and I want that, and it's not going to be solely on my lap to push this person through. So that's another tool. This one, I do this probably every 3 or 6 months for myself. I draft my future organization. And again, this is not anything you need to share with anyone. I actually share mine with my team because I want them to know what I'm thinking about for the VPOP's future and vision. I want them to know. You know, if Dan wants to be head of all sales, Dan, you would draw yourself, you know, head of all sales. What does that look like underneath? How would you organize it? You know, draw it out. What are the roles? What's everybody doing? How would you structure the work? You know, this is what we need to think about and put together, because it's surprising when you start to put things on paper, they just start to evolve. And they may not be exactly the way you put them down on paper, but it's interesting how things tend to happen. So in your plan, who would be your successor? Who would do what you're doing now? Write it down. All right, so these templates. The templates are different in that template 1 starts with the critical position or role. So if I am a person overseeing a sales team, maybe my most critical role is the top GP producer. If I don't have a critical role, but I have a critical business need, let's say Office 365, and my unreadiness to roll this out, I may start with template 2, which begins with a business need. So depending on whether your most critical situation is a role, is that your biggest risk, or is it the business need that's not covered? Is that your business risk? That is going to determine which one of these templates you start with. You might have both, in which case you'll do both. On template 1, you're starting with the role. So you're going to list your current person. Let's say it's top GP producer. List a couple of options for their successor internally, remember. We're not going to hire external, and we might have to, but in this scenario, we are planning for internal growth. List a couple options. Okay. Then list the business need. Okay, top GP producer is this person. Here's a couple of thoughts I have, Sally and Joe. What's the business need? Okay, with this top GP producer, this is what their account base looks like. You know, this is what it's geographically, or it's vertically, or it's, you know, it's a one client mostly, or, you know, whatever it is. The business need is they need somebody who's like really attentive, and they have to know healthcare, or they can go out on site every single day, or, you know, whatever it is, kind of draw out those needs and what is coming over the next 12 months, so emerging and current, and then the plan. So you've got your options, now you've got some needs, now you have to just draw out the plan over the next 12 months to fill the gap. For me, let's say I had a recruiter on the bubble. I would list, you know, Lisa and Mike as the current incumbents. I would list a couple of options. Is anyone on my team an option? Well, they're all capable. I don't know if the desire is there to do recruiting. I'm pretty sure it's not. So what am I going to do? Is there somebody in the business? I bet you there's a salesperson somewhere that could be an awesome recruiter. There's a salesperson who's maybe not the top salesperson, but maybe they could be a really good recruiter. Let me write down a couple of names, you know. All right, what's the business need? Well, they need to know Vology, they need to know our comp plans, they need to know, you know, this is all stuff I can train. Okay, what else do I need? I need somebody who can sell, who can pitch, who can hook, who can close, negotiate. Okay, write it down. What's coming down? Well, a lot of technical hiring, a lot of not hiring, a lot of volume hiring, video interviewing, meeting with managers, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm writing it down. So now I've got a couple of options I just threw up on the paper, and I've got exactly what my needs are, and now I'm going to figure out a plan to kind of put those two things together. And that may not work out. You know, I don't know if, you know, if Steven Nava is going to be my next recruiter, but you know what? Once I put some ideas to it and put plans around it, who knows where it could go? And then, you know, talking to the people, if it does look like a plan that could come to fruition, it may not be for 24 months, right? But having those conversations would, one, engage the employee if he or she is interested and get them like, wow, I really have a future here. You know, now you got them on the hook for a couple of years, and they really do have a future and they can learn something new. So it's good for the employee because they're excited, and it's good for me because I've got a contingency plan. So in the case that I did lose a recruiter, God forbid, well, maybe I can speed up my plan. And then in the second template, this is business need. It starts with a business need. So in my example, training, right? We all know we need training. We have no trainer. There's a need for sales training. There's a need for new hire training. There's a need for knock tech training. There's a need for leadership development training. There's all these training needs. So I'm going to list out my business needs. These are my needs. What are the outcomes required? Well, we need people who are learning skills internally, and we're not losing them to competitors who can offer them training. And, you know, key competencies, I need somebody who's really great in front of a classroom. I need somebody who has some experience with adult learning, maybe. Maybe they've been a teacher before, maybe they haven't. Maybe just speaking skills are good. Maybe content creation is good. I'm going to try to write down all of these things I need. And in the critical role, I'm going to list a couple options. So now I've listed my stuff. Okay, presentation skills, good at teaching, patient, can learn a lot of things, can relay that information, speak in layman's terms. Okay, I've got 420 employees who work here. Is there anyone here who can do that? Dan probably could. Ellie probably could. Jeff could. Steve could. Well, not all these people are going to necessarily want to be trained, but I mean, I could probably come up with a list of 20 people who could do that internally. And then, you know, there's not going to be everyone who would fit the role or want the role and blah, 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 but I might pick a couple who may and then go, okay, well, what's the roadmap? Let me draw it out. When am I going to talk to this person? Should I talk to their leader? These are the types of stuff. It's not rocket science, right? It's just kind of thinking and planning. But these are the steps we need to take to get our organization covered. And then so I can move up, and so Shelley can move up, and Dan can move up, and we can all kind of move up and around the business. So, you know, it's a lot of stuff that we covered today. It's a lot of tools. It's a lot to think about. My hope is that you guys do go away and spend like 15 minutes with this stuff and just start by drawing out your organization. And you know what, if you're a supervisor and you have one person reporting to you, go with a few steps and draw out the organization, the accounting organization as you would see it, as you would organize it, as you would structure it. And it doesn't mean that you're trying to take Ann's job or Doug's job, but it really forces us to think about, you know, strategic organization structure, and from there a lot of really cool things can happen. So I'm going to challenge you guys to do that. If you're a leader of a function, of a department, of a team, it is your duty to do this. It is your duty to have this plan. By the end of the year, we're going to be looking for those plans from department heads, functional leaders. So it's going to be a really important part of our growth. Anyway, what questions can I answer for you guys? Concerns, anything that's confusing? Any ideas, stories?
I think it's good. But I also think it needs to come from the top down. So everybody needs to understand the vision and direction and understand where they fit in the future. You know, and I think that's important to people who are in the warehouse all the way up to your executives. And so everybody feels like they're on the same page. But I think understanding what the company's goals are and how we relate those down to the individuals, regardless if you're picking orders in the warehouse or if you're, leading a team of 14 salespeople, you need to understand. But I think this is important. I've done this. I've done this since I've been here, and I think it's important to do that. And you don't always get it right. And it's not about being right. You may pick the wrong person to replace you or move into a position, but it's having a vision to go there. It gives you sort of that common goal to chase after.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I tried to fill the dead space. You guys can say something.
Yeah.
You asked me to
There we go.
Dan, you're a unique and rare talent.
Everybody's so quiet.
I do look at that as, say, for instance, with my team members, because say whereas a regular SOS 1, I've had a lot of promotions. I've had several of them move up to a position 2. But also at the 2 level, I look at, okay, who can move into that sales admin position? Who can go even further to be a sales assistant? So you have to constantly keep your eye on how are these people progressing and what can you do to help them.
Yeah.
And in my one-on-ones, we do talk about that. Is, would you one day like to be Ronnie's assistant, or something like that, so you have to keep that in mind. But I think most of my concentration is going to be what are my business needs, because our sales force is growing constantly, and we have, for instance, Dan and I've worked on when salespeople reach that President's Club. Okay, that's going to necessitate me to have more sales admin. So we've been kind of working on that. But I think mine would be mainly on where is the company going. What are going to be my needs now? I may only have 10 people now, but gosh, next year I may need, if it goes good, we may need 14.
Yeah.
So you've got to think about that as what is Balaji going to need.
Yeah.
But I think for you, you're one of those gems, right? You're one of the ones that Jen put on the board and said, if this person left, how screwed would be. And that's why you would not inflate your head. But on your plan is that you're going to, $500 million, you're going to have double the people.
Absolutely.
You can't manage that many people. So you're creating this position for yourself by 2018 because that's what the growth is. And are you having managers managing SOS1, manager managing SOS2, manager managing admin, and they roll up? So it's sort of you painting that picture. So I always find it important to go from the top down so you develop the entire picture. It may be even
a thing where as we do grow as a company, that I'm going to need more than one lead person. Like you said, SOS1, sales admin, assistant.
But you're in a perfect position to do that because you understand what the span and control is of each of those people. If they handle 4 sales reps as an SOS1, if you threw 6 on there, how bad would it be? What would we drop the ball on? Where would we be at that point? So you sort of lead that discussion and dictate what the coverage needs to be.
And I think to Dan's point, so you said something really important, which it needs to be top down, right? No, it's important. And so you guys know the executives, we've gone through this stuff. They are responsible for their succession plans too. But a lot of the stuff needs to come from the bottom up because to your point right there, Dan, only Juanita knows how much one of those SOS 1s and 2s can take. A Barry and a Steve, they're not going to know to that level. Juanita's going to have to drive that. And what would be so great is when we get to that point when he says, I've already thought about this, so let me just show you my plan. And they're going to be like, okay, go for it. Instead of no plan, well then, okay, Juanita, let me tell you, and then they're going to get involved, and they don't know as much as Juanita knows, and then that's when a lot of the chaos happens too, quite frankly, is when the top comes down because there are no plans in the mid-ranks. So we need to, in the mid-ranks, really come up with those plans and own them so we can show them and manage up and give them the confidence that, you know, I've got this. So it's both, for sure.
I got to jump. I'm sorry.
All right, Dan. Any other questions, comments, burning desires?